Well, I don't know how many years on this earth I got left. I'm gonna get real weird with it.
Hello, my beauties and bees. Thank you for sticking around. Some of you stuck around. We did lose a few people along the way, but that's all right. We're gonna keep on trucking, and hopefully, I'll fix my camera because I'm blurry. I don't like that. So we'll do that, and then we'll do that. That should fix it. Fix it. It's good. My eyes look really bright with this wig on. Look how bright my eyes are. All right. So, hello. Welcome. We are getting weird with it today, talking about a lost colony. Talking about the lost colony of Roanoke, North Carolina. Now, I guess it's Roanoke, North Carolina now. Would it have been Roanoke, Virginia back then, or Virginia colony maybe? Regardless, that's where we're gonna visit. As soon as I get it pulled up. All right, let's see here, which is a long way off from the fog that we were covering, but the channel we're looking at. Is this the right channel? No, it's not. Hold on. This is the one we wanted. Yeah. I picked this one because this freaking thumbnail is insane. It has a red dude floating in the air and a UFO and like what most likely happened. It's like, what? It calls it a mini documentary. This is from a channel called Bad Things, True Crime. I guess it is kind of true crime. There were a lot of crimes that took place in Roanoke. Let's unpack.
In today's video, we will look at a case where 115 people vanished into thin air.
Thin air, not fat air.
In August 1587, approximately 115 English settlers arrived on Roanoke Island, off the coast of what is now North Carolina, marking the beginning of one of America's first unresolved mysteries.
Before I even get 30 seconds in, we gotta go. Let's defer to the map. Where's the map? What do I do with the map? Did I close it? I think I did. That's all right. I'll pull it up right now, and it'll be a thing. There we go. All right. Roanoke. Okay. So, this is North Carolina and Virginia, right? And there's this strip of islands along here called the Outer Banks. And they're mostly glorified sand dunes. And they run basically the whole coastal length of North Carolina and the southern part of Virginia on into, I believe, into northern South Carolina. Nope, they end before they get to that border. Yeah, so they end right before that border. But these are the Outer Banks. And they really stand out up here because you got the Pamlico Sound. But this island, there's a couple of islands in here, but the southernmost island north of the Sound is Roanoke Island. And this is where the colony was. All right. Now that we've established that, continuing on.
2 years after a first disastrous attempt to colonize Roanoke, these colonists intended to establish the first permanent English outpost in the New World.
And that's important to remember, too, that this is the first English settlement, and it's the only one in the 14th century, because it was settled in 1588. And like the next closest was Jamestown, which was like 1608 or 1612, something like that. Regardless, this was the only one that got it start. The only English colony that got its start in that century. And there were tons of Spanish colonies down south that could have caused a lot of problems if they had decided to journey north and visit Roanoke.
That year, John White, the new colony's administrator, would return to England to stock up on fresh supplies. As he arrived, however, a significant naval conflict broke out between England and Spain, and Queen Elizabeth I ordered all available ships into battle against the formidable Spanish Armada. White returned to Roanoke in August 1590, 3 years after leaving...
Could you imagine just, like, struggling to survive in the colonial era, imperialism, you know, plague, starvation, the blazing sun of the Caribbean, and the locals expect you to wear that big goofy-ass collar around your neck? The parliament demands that you wear that if you're going to speak before the royal magistrate.
His wife and daughter, his infant granddaughter, Virginia Dare, who was the first English child born in the Americas, and the other settlers. He discovered no traces of the colony or its inhabitants, and few clues as to what may have occurred, except for a single word, Croatoan, inscribed into a wooden post, and crow etched into a tree.
And despite what the television series Supernatural might have you believe, Croatoan is not a mysterious word that nobody knows. It was the name of one of the tribes. There's actually, back to the map here, this sound is named Croatoan Sound after the Native American tribe that lived there. So no, it's not a mystery. And here's Hatteras Island. And that's where this is where the Croatoans lived. They lived there, and the colonists lived here. And this island is huge too. Hatteras Island, I believe, runs from here all the way up to here, I believe. This might continue on as Hatteras Island, I'm not sure, but I know, I think this is Currituck Island, but I know that this sound, or sorry, not sound, this inlet right here is part of the island, because this, at low tide, this is land too. Anyway.
Due to the absence of concrete evidence and the presence of enigmatic clues, the abandoned settlement is the subject of wild speculation and theories.
Turn it up a little bit, I can't hear it. I'm going to speed it up too.
It comes as no surprise that theories on the disappearance of 115 people can range from plausible to absolutely wacky. The colonists were eaten. Although there is evidence of cordial relations with some tribes in the area...
I want a tricorn hat. Let's do it. I keep having trouble finding a sun hat that meets my standard. You need a tricorn hat if you're going to fit it in the colonies. At least you don't got to wear the stupid collar. I'd rather live in the tricorn hat era than the stupid collar era. But the tricorn hat era, I guess, came with stupid ascots. So
yeah. Some Native American tribes may have been hostile to the Roanoke colonists. There is a theory that a cannibalistic tribe could have attacked and eaten the British colonists. If accurate,
everybody who wasn't white was a cannibal, of course. That's the story they want to tell you. That's the narrative that they weave.
Explain why no corpses or skeletal remains have ever been recovered. Bone powder was a...
And you know, when you're a cannibal and you eat people, you eat their skeleton too. Skeleton's where their magic power is. So you gotta eat that up.
Common constituent in the medicinal remedies of numerous indigenous cultures. Although it is a time-consuming task, they would have had ample time to complete it, as White was absent for 3 years, and it is impossible to pinpoint when the settlers vanished.
So, did you just claim that the natives killed the settlers, ate them, and ground their bones to powder? You think that the natives were it was just Hannibal Lecter? Yeah, all the Croatoan Indians were cannibals.
No conclusive evidence that any local communities practiced cannibalism, but there is evidence that Jamestown colonists engaged in cannibalism in 1609. After multiple unsuccessful harvests, it is conceivable that the colonists in Roanoke succumbed to consuming human flesh as well.
Now, I don't doubt that there may have been internal cannibalism. That would make a lot more sense than the natives who lived here and already knew how to survive in that land for thousands of years would have resorted to cannibalism when there's much safer things that they could have eaten.
The colonists were massacred by Chief Powhatan. In 1607, colonists from the Jamestown colony tried to find out what became of their unfortunate predecessors. Secretary William Strachey of Jamestown asserted that the Native American chief Powhatan, Pocahontas's father, confessed to leader John Smith that his tribe massacred the colony as retribution for allying with a rival tribe. Powhatan allegedly acquired a musket barrel, brass mortar, and pestle that he had stolen from the colonists. However, historians and anthropologists dispute this account, as Strachey is the only source for this confession. Smith did not mention it in any...
Yeah, it's like confessions of murder from native people wasn't a uncommon thing. Sometimes they would get them to say it and they don't even know what they were saying in the language, right? They would just teach them to say the confession out loud. And if they said it right, then before court or whatever, then they'd be executed and that would be the end of it. And they did do that too. The Spanish were notorious for doing that, teaching them how to confess to just for simple things because the Spanish colonies were super Catholic. They would get them to confess to they would put a cross down on the side of the road, and if they didn't kneel before that cross when they passed it on the roadside, they would get in trouble for shirking reverence for Christ and things like that. It was a really shitty way that they did it. They did natives so bad. But they would teach them how to say, I did this or I did that in a language they didn't even speak, and then prosecute them for it or execute them for it.
Any of his writings. A contagious illness drove the colonists insane. Native American communities asserted that they witnessed internal conflict among the colonists of Roanoke. Based on this evidence, some archaeologists hypothesize that the Roanoke colonists contracted a plague. Those infected with the disease may have experienced delirium, paranoia, or even complete lunacy. Those who were not afflicted...
I mean, there was a lot of plagues going around. I mean, at this point, while the English are getting settled in on their little island in North Carolina, like South America, like the whole continent, and Central America into Mexico... The whole place is like in flames with plague. The whole population, hundreds of millions of people infected across the continents, I suppose I should say. It hadn't quite reached the east coast of North America at this point, but a lot of the South American population was already wiped out by this point. We're talking I'm not exaggerating. It's like 95%. Like if you look at the populations in the Amazon, for instance, it's like 95% of the population was wiped out. Like when we look at the first travel down the Amazon River, for instance, they talk about cities of hundreds of millions of people, right? Cities that go on for miles and miles along the riverbanks. It didn't take long for the Amazon to take it back, because the Amazon is hungry, and the forest floor is a giant stomach, and there's no giant stomach in the world quite as big as the Amazon. So all these civilizations and cultures were just swallowed up and forgotten. And we're just now starting to discover where they were and see some of their foundations and stuff. It's really cool. But all that was happening at the same time that this was happening in North America. And there may have been some disease working its way up the coast from the Spanish colonies long before this, maybe into Florida and on up the coast. But I don't think that there was that it would have affected the colonists as much as it would have affected the native populations.
It would have killed those who were for fear of contracting the infection. Spanish troops murdered the colonists. Some believe the Spanish were involved in the disappearance of the Roanoke colonists, given that England was at war with Spain at the time of the colony's disappearance. Among other things, Spain and England were at odds over the colonization of the Americas, and Spanish troops were stationed in Florida at the time.
About this, I don't think that if the Spanish had did it, that they would have kept it a secret. I think they would have bragged about it. And don't try that again. Don't try to colonize over here again. We'll take you out.
The colonists were sabotaged as part of a plan to discredit Sir Walter Raleigh. Lee Miller, an anthropologist, believes the colonists were victims of a conspiracy hatched by Sir Francis Walsingham, the Secretary of State for England under Queen Elizabeth I. Miller theorizes in her book, Roanoke, Solving the Mystery of the Lost Colony.
Was it because he didn't like having to wear that stupid collar? That thing would annoy me so much. Luckily, yeah, I wouldn't have to wear it as a woman. The women wore them too, but not like day-to-day life. And I guess not everybody's wearing it in this picture. Some of these people aren't wearing one. He's wearing one.
that Walsingham intentionally abandoned the colonists and left them to die because Sir Walter Raleigh, who funded the Roanoke expedition, was granted a royal patent for all the land he settled in North America. According to the theory, the colonists moved west into North Carolina, where they became embroiled in a conflict between native nations at war. They were either captured or executed. All of this would have been kept confidential by the Crown, which explains why there are no records. And here comes the wacky. Zombies. According to a theory that some internet users enjoy...
Oh, we're going with zombies. This is the one I want to be true. I think there's a movie about this. The zombie Roanoke. Hold on. Roanoke zombies. I know there's a one where that the Roanoke, the colony was wiped out by Viking ghosts from Vinland. Zombie Research Society. There's actually a Zombie Research Society. I gotta get in on the ground floor of this. Actually, it's probably been around for decades. Look at this. Zombie Research Society. The mystery of the Roanoke began when supply ships returned in 1590, and not a single living soul, and no evidence of war, famine, or any other possible reason for the colony's complete disappearance. In fact, it's still generally accepted. There's still a generally accepted explanation for what happened to those settlers. ZRS researcher Andre Freeman suggests that it may have been the work of zombies. All right, let's see.
Joy spreading, Roanoke was allegedly the epicenter of a zombie apocalypse. This theory incorporates aspects of other hypotheses that the colonists became cannibals due to disease. According to this
they were from Finland. Vinland. Vin. It's what they called the Greenland colony in North America. Vinland. Vinland or Land.
hypothesis, the colonizers were infected with a zombie virus that gave them an insatiable appetite for human flesh and accelerated their decomposition after their human food source was depleted. Before whites' return, the remains would have been long gone, and the infestation would have ended. The paranormal theories do not end with zombies. The Croatans believe that greater spirits manifested in
I think that they were Danish at that time, that Vinland was settled. I think that the Greenland was settled by Danes. Eric the Red, Leif Erikson was the one who led the expedition to Vinland, but his dad Eric the Red led the expedition from Iceland to Greenland. He actually named Greenland, and he named it that to trick people from Iceland to go into Greenland, even though Greenland was icier than Iceland. But then, Vinland is wine. It means wine land. But that they think that the wine was gooseberry wine, that it wasn't grape wine, because grapes don't grow in Nova Scotia, Labrador, anywhere up there. But gooseberries do, and you can make pretty good gooseberry wine. If anybody wants to make me gooseberry wine and send it to me, I can provide you with an address.
Form of the elements, and they reported a peculiar occurrence that coincided with the disappearance of the colonists. In the area where the indigenous people hunted, a considerable number of birds and other animals suddenly died. The Croatans spoke of a malicious entity that assumed the appearance of a reptile. They claimed it could attach itself
Hell yeah! Here's where we get weird. Giant reptiles. Do you all think it was a giant reptile or zombies? Which one? I'm going to do a poll. Let's see. Start a poll. What happened in Roanoke? Alright, and we're going to do, let's see, Viking Ghost. Alright, and then we had a zombie plague. And then we'll have a giant reptile. And then we'll have some kind of cannibal. Yeah, there we go. Start poll. let me know.
humans, causing them to exhibit demonic characteristics such as violence and greed. The Croatans forewarned the colonists.
It was
that
a
the evil
demonic reptile that made people greedy. Oh, come on. Oh, the poll's going wild. Wild. Nobody believes in zombie plague, though.
reptilian spirit was infecting the entire region. When the colonists started fighting amongst themselves, they realized
These aren't colonists, those are the natives. I want to play whatever this game is. Looks fun. I want to get my ass out and hug a pole with a face on it with little paddles. This looks freaking lit. Look at this motherfucker right here. Yes, this is the life that I want to live. This is the life that the white man took from me. Yes, I'm the white man. I would have just brought plague onto these people. I wouldn't have been a boon on their existence, but I would have had a hell of a good time playing whatever they're playing here and doing the hugging thing in the middle. This is where I would shine, right here. And you notice that despite the fact that everybody has their cheeks out, no one's playing grab ass. And that's an important thing to remember about Native society. Just because you could run around with your butt cheeks flapping does not mean that it was cool for someone else to come along and just give them a quick squeeze. You had to respect boundaries.
that the settlers were infected with the creature's evil, and the colony was doomed. The disappearance of the Roanoke colony is not the only aspect of this enigma.
Finally, I think like one person voted for the zombie plague. 8% of the vote. 8%. Vikings are at 23. And then we got some kind of cannibal on 31. And then giant reptiles winning. Of course it is. If you put all these forces against each other, giant demon reptiles can definitely win. They trump Viking ghost, which Viking ghost can be pretty powerful.
Archaeologists and historians are still trying to determine why Croatoan was inscribed into that post. The word Croatoan is surprisingly associated with a strange event a few centuries later. The untimely passing of author Edgar Allan Poe in 1849 is poorly understood. After going missing during his journey from Virginia to Pennsylvania, he was discovered in a Baltimore gutter, barely conscious and muttering incoherently. On his deathbed, Poe whispered the word Croatoan. It is unclear what medical condition he had, and his official cause of death is also in doubt. All medical records and his
I wish they'd stop acting like Croatoan's like some mystery word or something. Let me see. So, Croatoan is the name of an island south of Roanoke, now Hatteras Island, which at the time was home to Native American tribe of the same name. So it's the name of a native tribe. It's not some mystery word. Like, what does it mean? What does Croatoan mean? It literally means these people. Croatoan were a small Native American ethnic group living in the coastal area of what is now North Carolina. They might have been a branch of larger Roanoke people or allied with them. They aren't some, like, I mean, the only mystery of them is, well, I mean, is that even a mystery? They went the same way as a lot of Native American peoples when they got diseases from us. Anyhow.
Certificates were lost. Could he have had the same experience as the vanished colony? This enigmatic word has also appeared in other mysteries. Before his 1888 release, infamous stagecoach bandit Black Bart allegedly carved the word into the wall of his prison cell, was released, and was never seen again. The writer Ambrose Bierce disappeared in Mexico in 1913, and the post of the bed he slept in allegedly bore the word Croatoan etched into it. The word also
I didn't know that about Ambrose. That's interesting. I know that author, though. I've read some of his work. He had a story about Wendigo, I believe, that was pretty good.
Was on the final page of the logbook of the ghost ship Carroll A. Deering, which ran aground in 1921 near what was formerly known as Croatoan Island, near Cape Hatteras. Amelia Earhart allegedly scribbled the word in her journal, discovered after her 1937 disappearance.
Allegedly. A lot of alleged is going to do a lot of heavy lifting here. Let me see here. Ember's dropping some facts about Greenland I wanted to cover. Greenland exports wine right now, and it is middle century. It was even warmer up north. We find vineyards up to the 55 degrees north from that era. Yeah. That's pretty cool. The Vikings settled, Greenland and Iceland, really, during what was called the medieval warm period, which is the warmest time frame during the Common Era, during the CE, and it was a lot of ice-free regions. But we have actually surpassed that. I believe this last decade has surpassed the medieval warm period with being the warmest. The Wendigo is written by Algernon Blackwood. Okay.
Contrary to popular
Ambrose,
opinion,
what did Ambrose Pierce write?
some experts believe that the colonists left some evidence behind before they disappeared. The Dare stones are a collection of 48 stones carved with inscriptions purportedly written by the survivors of the Roanoke colony. The rocks, which were discovered between 1937 and 1940, recount a dramatic tale. Except for the first stone found, it has been determined that most of the stones are hoaxes. This stone, known as the Chowan River Stone, may have been engraved during the colonial period. In the summer of...
So there's one stone that was actually may have been carved by people when the colony was still active, and then a bunch of hoaxes. Okay.
1937, a California tourist named Louis Hammond discovered the first stone. Hammond took the stone to Emory University in Atlanta, claiming he discovered the 21-pound stone while searching for hickory nuts along a recently opened stretch of Highway 17 near Edenton, North Carolina. The carved initials are believed to belong to Eleanor White Dare, daughter of the colony's governor John White, and mother of Virginia Dare. In April 1941, the Saturday Evening Post published an article condemning the Dare stones as forgeries, citing anachronistic language and a consistency of spelling that was unprecedented at the time. After this, the Dare stones ended up in a
So, anachronistic spellings, huh? That sounds very damning. Unless you're saying it's from a time traveler.
basement at Roanoke University, a disgrace for the academics involved. However, scholarly attention is occasionally turned to the Chowan River Stone, the original Dare stone discovered by Hammond. It is made of a different rock than the others. A bright white quartzite interior and dark exterior would have made an excellent choice for Eleanor Dare's letter to her father. And in the 1930s...
Does it have the anachronisms on it?
The patina on the stone would have been difficult to chemically replicate. In addition, it lacks the anachronistic language of the other stones. According to some experts, the only possible anomaly is Eleanor Dare's signature.
Come on now, I got 30 of you all watching right now, and I've only got 15 votes on this poll. How are we supposed to know what took the Roanoke colonist?
Includes the initials EWD, which was not typical in the 16th century. Innovative technologies in Elizabethan epigraphy, chemical analysis, and other ancient rock inscriptions may shed light on this mysterious stone and its inscriptions, even though many experts disregard the Chowan River Stone as an apparent fake.
I disregard all those stones as fakes, personally. If you got evidence otherwise, morning staff.
What most likely happened to the colonists in Roanoke is not as sensational as all the theories. What unfolded at Roanoke has perplexed historians for centuries. The missing settlers left behind only the two clues mentioned earlier, the word Croatoan carved into a fort's gatepost, and Crow etched into the tree. Originally, Hatteras Island was known as Croatoan. Consequently, this discovery prompted a widespread theory that the English settlers had abandoned the colony for the island. Now the excavation work of archaeologist Scott Dawson has potentially proven this to be true. Scott Dawson is uniquely qualified to investigate what happened at the Roanoke colony.
Hold on.
In addition to being an island native with family origins dating back to the 1600s, he is also an experienced archaeologist and the president of the Croatoan...
So again, Hatteras Island is huge compared to Roanoke. And there's like not even that much... like during low tide, you could practically take a paddle boat. No, you can probably take a paddle boat there any time of day. It's very close. This is all Hatteras Island again. From here, it's long and skinny, all the way down to here. It runs like a third of the height of the state. So it's a pretty big island. And I think most of the population live down here, though. Obviously, this is going to be more easy to live on than these thin sandbars here where a nice hurricane will blow you right into the bay. But yeah, there's Roanoke Island and Hatteras Island down here. All right, back to the video.
Archaeological Society, an organization dedicated to the historical event. The author of The Lost Colony and Hatteras Island argues in his book that the lost colony was never lost. In 2009, professional archaeologists and local volunteers began excavations on Hatteras Island. A few years later, in 2013, scientists began to find evidence that supported their theory. Copper rings, sword handles, earrings, writing slates, and glass dating to the 16th century and originating in England were discovered. Dawson pointed out, as much as I believe the colony went down to Hatteras, I never actually thought we were going to find it. I can't believe we found what we found. It's kind of surreal. Professor Mark Horton, who assisted Dawson with the excavations...
Well, I mean, but are we looking at artifacts that say that they settled down there, or that the stuff that was in the colonies, the items that were left behind in the colonies, were looted and brought down there, or just taken down there for whatever reason? I feel like we're jumping to a conclusion there. Obviously, if there's some support of this, I love to look at it, but it's all conspiracy stuff as far as I know.
Explains that the Roanoke Enigma was the result of natural human dispersal. When these colonies become abandoned, you get massive political eruptions and disagreements and people walking out and things, he said. So, it's not unlikely that one group might have gone up the Chesapeake, up the Albanal. But I'm pretty confident one group at least, probably the pretty substantial part, came out to Hatteras Island. Researchers believe they located a survivor camp on Hatteras, where the colonists lived before assimilating with the Croatans. According to Horton, these Native Americans were
where they
friendly.
died.
It was a good place with one's allies, in a place where you could potentially be rescued. We not only found evidence of mixed architecture of houses, but also metallurgy, where they had blacksmith shops and were also working in copper and lead, and this continued right on into the 1600s, Dawson has said. It's hard to say how many, but a few dozen at least lived for a few decades down there in the villages and continued to work in metals. They discovered several gun parts, which the stranded settlers combined with sections from other firearms because they could not obtain replacements. Earrings and wires were repurposed.
That's kind of cool that they customized their own firearms with pieces of different ones to create weapons to defend themselves and to hunt with.
Numerous other objects that were
pretty
repurposed
cool.
for more practical purposes. Before John White even left the colony, they were already hand and glove with the Croatones anyhow, said Dawson. So when he told them to write down where they were going, and he saw that message 3 years later, he didn't say, "Oh my God, what does this word mean?" He knew exactly where that was and why they were there, and he said so. Despite this clear sign, it would take archaeologists over 400 years to confidently trace the Roanoke colonists back to Hatteras Island.
So
There are
no
numerous
giant
mysteries and
reptile?
inexplicable occurrences in American history annuals. From ancient times to the present, mysteries persist, crimes are never solved, cryptozoological creatures skulk in forests and lakes, and people go missing. They are never found, the government is suspected of covering up their existence, and accepted written history is frequently called into question. Undoubtedly, some mysteries will never be solved, while others inspire new generations with advanced technologies to seek answers, and still others remain the subject of heated debates. It seems that for now, the mystery of Roanoke has been saved by good old archaeology. If you love our content and want to support the channel, feel free to check our web shop where you can find exclusive true crime merch brought to you by Bad Things.
So there's I don't have merch right now. I should get some merch. But when it comes to let's end the poll with you all and say looks like a giant reptile for the win. Some kind of cannibals did come in second place. The Viking ghost was in third place, and then zombie plague. We're not really feeling the zombie plague, which is okay. We've talked about zombies before and how zombie plagues are pretty impractical for an impractical way for a disease to spread. We've talked about that ad nauseum, I think, when I did my zombie episode. But regardless, when you look at this region and think of all the mosquitoes that are going to be, like, this is all swampland, right? I don't know how to express this to you all enough that this is marshiness. Look at that. And this is after modern drainage and stuff. Where's our island? Yeah, there we go. Like, it's hard to express how swampy this area. Well, and right here they've got lawns and stuff, but like all this out here is marsh, salt marsh. It's not a lot of arable land, and it's surrounded by marshes, right? So, and even like the inlets and stuff don't, other than the developed stuff, this was not a good place, I don't think, to build. I'm not saying that coming all the way down here is any better. I don't know. I'm not. There's like here's Hatteras, right? I'm not saying this is necessarily a better place, but there's certainly better places. Like here's Williamstown, Plymouth. You got all these. Here's Roanoke Rapids, Richmond. All these places just a little bit further upriver. This peninsula here would have been good. Yeah, was that Cape Charles? But they did what they did. They lived where they had to. Where they had their grants. I just don't think it was the best choice. But I'm also not Sir Walter Riley. What do you think, though? Do you agree with our poll today that giant reptiles are probably the most likely culprit? Now, I do want to say that North Carolina didn't have alligators at this time. Like, alligators are just now moving that far north due to climate change. So if that's the giant reptile you're thinking about, you might want to rethink that. But speaking of animals moving north, yeah, we'll be covering armadillos in Bree's Beast Theory, so stick around for that. All right. But for getting weird with it and exploring the reason for the Roanoke disappearance, I'm going to call that an end to the segment. Please remember to be kind, take care, and we'll see you next time.